Hey, Sacred! Guess who's back to bring you our fifth, and sadly our last, episode of Crew Cast? That's right, Jordan here. Thank you all so much if you've listened to our first 4 episodes. We really appreciate it. If this is the first one you're tuning into, then welcome. Even though this is our last episode of Crew Cast, for now at least, I can assure you we've got a great collection lined up for you today, so fear not. Today's topic is one I'm sure we've all experienced before. Life. I know, deep, right? Seriously though, we have an amazing set of podcasts for you here. Starting us off, we're going to have Kennedy and Maia, Karen Campbell and Jessica Miller. 2 people from 2 different generations. I know, boomers and Gen Z. Who could possibly be more different? Well, maybe they're not so different after all. After that, Jessica is going to be taking us through a fascinating look at archiving our lives through time. Are cell phones a blessing or a curse? Then we're going to move this whole life conversation over to school life as Adriano tells us about his high school experience. Then Justin's going to tell us about the time that changed his life. Well, changed all of our lives, really. March 2020, the start of the pandemic. Woo! Yeah. And last, but certainly not least, Marc is going to be taking us on, frankly, quite the emotional roller coaster with his online schooling stories. All those dang appliances and fancy gadgets. Bit of an okay boomer moment, right? Well, good, because that leads us to our first podcast, Kennedy and Maia, Karen Campbell and Jessica Miller, with Okay Boomer.
Growing up is never easy, and though you may think they'll never understand you, your parents were once teenagers too. Sure, they may have listened to the Beatles instead of One Direction, but they were just as devastated by their favorite band's breakup as you were. And though they may make you say, "Okay, boomer," boomers are actually okay. I'm your host, Jessica Miller, and you're listening to Okay Boomer. Joining us this week, mother of 2 rambunctious Gen Zers, vice president of the PTA, and a customer who knows what she wants and will not hesitate to contact your manager. Please welcome Karen Campbell.
Why, thank you for having me, young lady. I must say, this is some spiffy technology you got here.
Thank you. So, Karen, what's it like to raise 2 children in today's world, and Gen Zers no less?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I was growing up, adults got a whole lot more respect. Kids these days have no manners. They can't even focus on a simple conversation without looking at those damn techno gadgets.
Do you mean cell phones?
Whatever you call them. I keep myself away from all that social media mumbo-jumbo. I don't want them hackers getting my info. No siree, Bob.
While I'm not too sure who Bob is, I think you're a little paranoid. Both of my parents refuse to get social media too, and I always say to them, "What is so special about you?" Out of the billions of people on social media, the chances of you being hacked, I would say, are slim to none. Speaking of cell phones, what was it like growing up without the technology of today?
Life was simpler. We used to play outside day and night without worrying about who liked our new Snapagram or followed our tweeters or, those mysterious white vans that lure children in with promises of candy.
But don't you think a lot of these new worries come from the helicopter parenting of your generation? Like, I remember when I was young, I wanted to play out on the street alone. But we always had to have adult supervision. It was never really an option, and I think that's also where this uprise in technology has played a big part. When my sister went off to university, my parents were so worried about me not having the technology to contact them at the drop of a hat. So I got a cell phone when I was 13. a lot earlier than previous generations would have. It made them less worried, and I mean, I didn't complain.
Well, I understand where you're coming from in terms of the promotion of technology. I always made sure my kids were aware of the importance of balance. When I was in high school and wanted to contact a friend, we would have to wait till the landline was free. This generation is all about the go, 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 and I made sure my kids knew the importance of being present. No phones at the dinner table, and no phones in the bedroom after 10 p.m., among other rules. Not that these rules were followed 100% of the time, because, as I said earlier, Gen Zs lack these basic manners.
Well, that's a pretty bold generalization.
And don't get lippy with me now. You're just proving my point.
So you're telling me you never rebelled against anything your parents asked of you? Not once?
There was one memorable night when I stayed on the horn with my beau at the time, Jimmy Martin, well past 2 a.m. The look on my dad's face when he saw the next month's phone bill was priceless. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, it seems to me like teenagers are going to act like teenagers, regardless of the generation they're growing up in. Looks like it's time for our pop culture quiz. Karen, I have a list of questions that pertain to either Gen Z or the baby boomers. It's time to put your money where your mouth is and see how much you really know about Gen Z.
I'm ready, Jessica.
So, round 1 is music. Which artist won a whopping 5 Grammys in one night, including Best New Artist and Album of the Year?
That's an easy one. It was obviously the king himself, Elvis Presley.
Close? But not quite. It was actually pop sensation Billie Eilish at the 2020 Grammy Awards.
Gosh darn it.
Okay, round 2 is catchphrases. What do you think I mean when I ask you to take several seats?
Logically, I could see that to mean nothing more than saving several seats for family or friends while at an outing. You know, the movies, a restaurant, an intimate gathering. You get the gist.
While I do applaud the effort, you are unfortunately wrong. This would actually be me telling you that you're being extremely annoying and need to take a few steps back or take a few seats. I'm surprised that someone like you has never heard that phrase before. Kidding. Okay, now something more in your wheelhouse. What does it mean when someone is such a drag?
Oh, I'm sure of this one. It means that said person is quite boring or no fun. To put it into context, when my mom wouldn't let me go out with my girlfriends on a school night, I would say, she's such a drag.
That is correct.
I knew it.
Okay, our final round is TV shows. What character from the hit TV show Friends repeatedly insisted that he and his former girlfriend were on a break?
Oh, Ross, of course. Now, he's a drag.
We can definitely agree on that one.
I'm surprised you're familiar with Friends. Isn't that before your time?
Well, yeah, but with like Netflix and other streaming services, we're actually able to watch these TV shows more from your time. Or listen to music you used to listen to. And I mean, the same does go for your generation. With all this new technology, we're able to kind of take a look at all that's happened before us and gain an appreciation for the differences in generations.
Wow. I never really looked at it like that before. Because so much of my life was spent living the same way with little technology and access to these doodads. It's been a little troubling to adapt to all this change. Sometimes I wish your generation could have a little more understanding for the major lifestyle change and cut us boomers some slack. It's not such an easy transition, and we're only trying our best.
I guess that makes sense. Well, if you look at it the other way around, I couldn't imagine adapting to a lifestyle without technology, especially in terms of like school.
Oh, that is one thing I do envy about Gen Z. Having to search through books and books, microfiche upon microfiche, it was not easy writing a good research paper. Not to mention the chronic back pain from lugging my set of encyclopedias to and from school. And most of my work was written by hand. No autocorrect or backspace button for Karen, just a pen, paper, and a little bit of whiteout.
Whoa, I haven't used pen and paper since, the third grade. The third grade was also when I started piano lessons, actually, on top of my soccer practices. And of course, the expectation to maintain a high average at my private school. The pressure to overachieve has definitely taken a toll on Generation Z, something I know was not as big a deal back then.
Well, we didn't juggle those multiple extracurriculars along with maintaining high marks like you just explained you went through, but we did have our own unique set of societal pressures and challenges to overcome. We didn't have the resources to balance a lifestyle like that of Generation Z. And not only were the funds not present in my circumstances, my parents didn't value extracurricular activities like most parents do today.
Sure, but in a lot of ways, couldn't you see that as a good thing? There was no pressure for you to perform or be involved, whereas today, it's rare to see a kid who isn't juggling at least one extracurricular activity. Honestly, I find that a lot of my anxiety stems from these expectations that others have of me and, of course, the self-inflicted pressure to be perfect.
Back in my day, we didn't even talk about things like mental health or anxiety or whatnot. And I actually think it's commendable that your generation is able to be so open about things like that. Mental health and mental illness have been around forever, but only up until recently has it been given equal importance as one's physical health and well-being. I know that I certainly would have been better off as a teen if I felt comfortable opening up to others when I was struggling.
Never really thought about that because for as long as I can remember, we've had assemblies about mental well-being and bullying awareness and equality of all sorts, really. While it is important for other generations to understand that these are still prevalent issues within Gen Z, I am glad I gained the perspective of this uprise in education. And that's why talks like these are so important. In the end, it is all about perspective. Without this understanding for one another, the world would be such a horrible place to live.
And I truly do commend you, young lady, on this podcast. While Gen Z may be quick to brush us off with a phrase like, okay, boomer, you are showing the importance of listening too. And while it may look different from generation to generation, growing up is not an easy feat, and neither is parenting, I might add, but you'll learn that soon enough.
Okay. It looks like we've just about reached the end of this segment. I do want to ask you one last thing before you go, though. Do you have any advice for us Gen Zers? Any words of wisdom from someone who has lived all of these life experiences we will soon live?
Just enjoy it. Life is too short to be worried about the perfect grades or the phone calls you didn't receive. Live for the now, because before you know it, you'll be the old timers. Get ready.
And to that I say, okay, boomer. Thank you so much for joining us, Karen, and make sure to join me, your host, Jessica Miller, on next week's podcast, where we discuss dating in the 70s. Was there life before online dating? And what does it mean to fancy someone? All this and more answered next week. See you then.
Thank you, Maya and Kennedy. Oh, shoot, I meant Jessica and Karen. When am I going to get that right? I think everyone, boomers and zoomers alike, can relate to that podcast. Sure, Gen Z is pretty different from Gen B in a lot of ways, but when we really take a step back, I think we're all just people trying to make our way in the world and hopefully have some fun along the way. The times may change, but the core experience of life remains the same. But as these times change, our way of documenting or archiving our experiences does change as well. Jessica is about to tell us more on how people have archived their lives throughout history. So, without further ado, here she is with Proof of Life.
If you were to look back right now at something fun you did in the past, how would you remember it? Is it through repetition of memory, through old photos, through old text messages? These are all examples of how we archive our lives. Definition of the word archive is a collection of historical documents or records. Most people don't realize how much we tend to hold on to things in order to look back on them later and reminisce. We have been archiving our lives for centuries through historical documents, old Polaroid photos, scrapbooking, the list goes on and on. But what I want to focus on is how we truly archive our lives in recent times through technology and social media and why we do this. How many times have you taken a picture on Snapchat and saved it? Then a year later, Snapchat shows you a flashback memory of that photo. This is a simple example of archiving that almost everyone does. Personally, I think I have hundreds, if not thousands, of Snapchat memories saved, and I never really took the time to think about why I do this. What significance does this moment hold that makes me want to capture it? Speaking of significant memories, something I find interesting is this observation. If you go to a concert, it is almost impossible to find someone who isn't on their phone recording. This is us trying to capture a memory so badly that we end up not even experiencing the actual memory. Or if you ever watch a wedding video in recent times, the video doesn't show the bride and groom surrounded by engaging guests, but instead shows the bride and groom surrounded by a bunch of guests shoving phones in their faces and holding their cameras up high, trying to capture the moment, not realizing that in their attempts to archive this event, they are ruining the moment and overall look of the wedding. We also archive our lives without even realizing it. That song you've had on Spotify for years will definitely bring up a memory long forgotten if you were to play that song right now. And those old text messages that you scroll through will cause you to remember a time period in your life and how you used to text, the type of things you used to say. Archiving our lives has become such a normal thing to us because of technology and social media. And now almost every single thing we do will get saved to some database that will stay there permanently. I bet your grandparents didn't have a small rectangle screen that held transcript proof of every single fight they got into. This isn't to say that archiving our lives is a bad thing at all, but here's where it gets interesting. To better understand this topic, we need to look into how our memory works. No matter how hard you try to precisely remember something, that memory will always get distorted as time goes by because it's almost impossible to remember something down to every last detail. And furthermore, if there's no proof of the event ever taking place, then it becomes even harder for the recollection of the event to become vivid to you. Our memories also get distorted based on how we're feeling in the moment. So if you're in a sad mood and you look at an old photo of you smiling, you can easily think either these two things. 1, wow, look how happy I used to be. Or 2, I wasn't truly happy. Deep down, I've always been sad. When in reality, in that moment, you're probably thinking about if your hair looked good in the photo or not. This is why archiving is never a truly accurate way of capturing a feeling or moment, because we can so easily project our own temporary feelings and inaccurate memories into a permanent piece of history. An article by Maia on Northwestern Now explains how we recall a memory. Basically, our memory is like a telephone game. Each time you recall an event, your brain distorts it. This is a quote from Maia. Every time you recall an event from the past, your brain networks change in ways that can alter the later recall of the event. Thus, the next time you remember it, you might not recall the original event, but the last time you thought about the event. Now, I like to go back to a question I asked myself earlier, which was, what significance does this moment hold that makes me want to capture it? There's so many little things that we do subconsciously in order to keep a memory of something alive, which begs the question of why exactly we archive. Let's say there is no proof of the life you lived, no photos or letters to look back on to be discovered by someone of the future after you passed away. What would be left of you? Archiving gives us a sense of meaning and identity. It gives us something to hold on to. Most of the time, we base our future actions off of events that took place in the past in order to give us some sort of direction. So without archiving, there would be no proof of who we once were. Proof of identity goes much farther than just having a birth certificate or ID. Sometimes we need something to go off of, because relying on memory alone isn't enough to make us feel like we have existed, gone out, and lived life. So next time you take a picture or listen to a new song, think about what it might really mean to you in the future.
I guess with a category like life, you're bound to get a little bit philosophical. That was Jessica with Proof of Life, a podcast that definitely made me think more about memories and reminded me to experience everything a little bit deeper, because soon this too will be a memory. Okay, well, I know that's a little bit heavy, but nevertheless, thank you so much, Jessica, for your opinion and insight on this topic. I think it taught us all a very valuable lesson. Speaking of experiences becoming memories, I can't help but think of high school. I mean, I'm in the last few months of grade 12. Soon, this will all be behind me, too. I feel a bit like those boomers in Kennedy and Maia's podcast. When I was your age in grade 9, I didn't need any of these fandangled masks. But seriously, just 4 short years and I'm already finishing high school. Do you think that's enough time? Here to answer that exact question is Adriano with My High School Experience, or his high school experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a podcast. My name is Adriano, and today we'll be talking about high school. My personal thoughts on high school. We'll be focusing more on the length and how I feel that we're not given enough time in high school. My personal experience, and yeah, let's get into it. So to start off, I would just like to say that I I love high school. It's been a great experience for me. I've had fun with all my teachers, and it's so good. But what I'm here to talk about is being a grade 11 student, going into grade 12 next year, and this year having to pick my courses for grade 12, which will lead me into the career that I'm going in. I don't feel like I was given enough time. I while picking my courses, I was so confused. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that partly is my fault because I didn't think of it too much ahead of time, but I also feel like that's partly the school's fault. I have multiple friends who are in the same boat as me, and they say that there's not enough courses for someone to really be able to explore what they like, and there should be more directly focused courses for certain things. Personally, I want to go into firefighting, and there's no course that I can take that will help me get into firefighting. Obviously, I need to take law, but there's nothing that would make me explore firefighting. I could take a 4 credit co-op, but that really just puts me at a disadvantage because one semester I have 4 mandatory courses, and that'd be very hard to handle. And I wouldn't be able to keep my grades up as high as possible. That's just one of the reasons I don't think we've been given enough time. Another reason is 4 years is, you may think it's a long time, but it's really not. I've I remember just being in elementary school like it was yesterday. They kind of just throw you from high school into college university. There's no real transition there. And I think that there needs to be a given year, or maybe even 2 years. And those 2 years, not even just focusing on the academics, because academics in high school, learning about the maths, learning about the sciences, the English, that's all good. The academics part of it is great, but the life part of it, I don't know how to do my taxes. I don't know how to pay a mortgage. And I feel like that's something high school should tell you. So if they could add another 1 or 2 years just focused on dedicated just to helping kids know what they're looking for in the real world, help them explore certain jobs, teach them how to pay mortgage, teach them how to pay taxes. These are things that will really help us in the real world that we're just not taught. And I think that a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't wait to get out of high school. I can't wait to go into college." But once they get to college, they're like, "I wish I was back in high school." And that's what I'm worried about. I'm so excited to get out of high school and go into college, but I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I personally am ready. And it's scary to think about. Because if I go into college university and I'm not ready, at that point it's just you man up and you do it. That's all you can do. And what I'm scared for is I'm going to go into a business that I don't like. And if I do, that's a major setback. So it's just, even if I was just given an extra semester just to go to 3 to 4 different jobs and just see if I like it, see if what I'm interested in, I think that'd make a world of a difference, not only for me, but other students as well. And I think everybody would appreciate that. That's just one of the reasons that those are some of the reasons actually, that I think that we should just have an extra year, 2 years, especially with this COVID stuff now. It's so hard there really is no exploring anything. The little chances we did with co-op are gone. So I think that if we could just give an extra year, it would help all the students out so much. Thank you for listening to my podcast, or a little rant, call whatever you want. But thank you, have a good day.
Thank you so much, Adriano, for sharing your high school experience with us and some of your thoughts about it. I know I personally relate to many of these concerns, and I know when I was in grade 11, the future seemed really daunting to me and more than a bit scary. And to be honest, it still kind of does. But I can say from my experience that it does get better, and though you might not really be certain of anything, you just take it one step at a time and it all works itself out. Speaking of taking things one step at a time in uncertainty, what about these times we're living in? I, for one, sure miss precedented times. And I think when we think back to the start of this all, we can all remember exactly where we were when we heard that March break would last for 3 weeks this year. Yeah. Here to tell us about his experience in March 2020 and throughout the pandemic is Justin. So give it up for Justin, everyone.
Hello, I'm your host Justin, and welcome back, or welcome to, the Unity Show. Hopefully all of you are having a wonderful day today, with it being 17 degrees Celsius out. So for today, we actually are going to be talking about a story that I have, called The First Day of the Rest of My Life. What happened last year during March? That's right, the global pandemic started. Schools shut down, many workplaces shut down. It was a complete hellhole. I'm going to tell you what happened to me days before and after the pandemic started. So I remember I was in grade 11, and I had just started a new semester in school. I was doing pretty well in my courses, which was odd. I am very introverted too, so I don't really go out a whole lot. Not that I can't, it's because I chose not to. I would maybe go out at least once or twice a week to see my friends or girlfriend. Not counting going out for school and work. And man, do I regret that. March 12th was the last day I was in school, not knowing it, of course. My friends and I treated it as a normal day of school. I would go to each class, go to the cafeteria for lunch, and so on. There were rumors about the coronavirus being in the York region, but it was only a few numbers, so nothing big to worry about. For some reason, that day I was very energetic, and I had a great time with my friends. This was a Thursday before March break, and I remember saying bye to a lot of people because a lot of people skip the Friday before March break. No one knows why, but it seems to be a trend, and I tend to follow it. When I got on my bus, I decided to go to my grandparents' house just to pop in and say hi because I thought they'd like that. So, when I was there, they turned on the TV and turned on the news channel. The people on the news said that the government is potentially shutting down all schools around the GTA. I was confused at first, so I went onto Snapchat, and literally almost everybody had on their stories that school is out for 3 weeks. I didn't really believe it at first, so I looked it up myself, and it seemed to be true. Right as I saw that, I was so excited and hyped that I literally jumped into the air. It was a great feeling. I worked at McDonald's at the time. Sometimes I would work in the normal McDonald's, and sometimes I would work at the Walmart location. Sometime during mid-March, when I was working at the Walmart location, before mask wearing was mandatory, I remember picking up a newspaper on my break because my phone was dead, and seeing 4 new cases found in the York region on the cover. And the cover had people in hazmat suits and letters in big bright red letters. And there was a COVID particle indicating the virus. It looked pretty scary. About 2 weeks went by, and I was sleeping in every day, not worrying about school or work, living the dream. Until the York Catholic District School Board made an announcement saying that we were having another month off. Sure, it was cool to know that too, but it seemed like a little much and didn't sit right with me. It seemed like every month they would add a new month, that it was just constantly repetitive. I started missing school and missing going out with friends. We're so lucky that we have social media and electronic devices, because if I didn't, I think I would go insane from boredom. In June, they decided to continue school, but online. So I had to do classes every day for 4 days a week, which wasn't that bad. But then summer came, and ever since then, I've missed school more than anything. Missing the teachers, socializing, the cafeteria cookies. Literally every day, and I mean every day, I wake up and I think to myself, I really should have taken school for granted. I'm never going back to school for a normal day, ever. I'm in grade 12 now, and there's 4 more months of school left. I'm doing all online because I'm trying to be as safe as possible for me and my family. But I really miss school. If there was anything I could get back in the world besides death, it would be school. It's still unknown if COVID will be a thing forever, if mask wearing is going to be mandatory forever. Never would I have thought that March 12th, 2020 would be the first day of the rest of my life.
Wow. Thank you for that, Justin. I can definitely say for a fact that March 2020, I think, has changed all of our lives very significantly, and I'm definitely with you on missing normal school. But I think we can all agree that we'll all appreciate things a little bit more once we get back to our normal lives, however long that takes. I don't think anything's going to be taken for granted then. But until then, we're just powering through, I guess. Seriously, if you had told me a while ago that my senior year would be almost entirely online, I would have never believed you. And yet here we are. Marc has clearly been thinking about this a lot lately, and now we're going to hear him go over some of his experiences with online school and some of the pros and cons he's experienced with it in Online School or Online Fool.
All right, so online school is definitely different, right? It's been a different change for everybody. It's nothing that we're used to. Well, I mean, I guess this year we are a little bit more used to it because we did do it for a semester back in grade 11, at least my grade. The grade 12s last year kind of got stuck with it in their senior year, which sucks, but so are we. I mean, to be fair, we're a little bit better off. We still get to go to school and see each other, and I'm sure people still go out and see each other, which, might be the problem, but I'm not pointing fingers. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the pros and cons of online school. And there are definitely a lot of them. I'm going to be going over some of the major ones in my opinion in today's podcast. So, let's start with the pros, Start with some of the lighthearted stuff first, right? And then we'll dive into some of the more gloomy and sad things afterwards. So, the first pro is I've personally gotten some really, really funny stories from online school. Uh, this first story being not as funny as it is a little bit like frustrating for myself to find out. Last year, actually, this was in grade 11 during the second semester when we had English and we were full online after March break, right? Um, there was an assignment that I needed to turn in on Google Classroom. So I put it into the assignment folder and I went to sleep. I forgot to click submit. And the next morning, I wake up to an email from my teacher asking why it wasn't turned in. And I just thought, oh my God, I forgot to turn in my assignment. And I had emailed him back right away. I said, sir, I'm sorry. It's my fault. If I get late marks, I completely understand. Granted, he was very understanding about the whole thing. Everybody was getting adjusted to this new system, and we're all working together. And it's still like that now, which is great. Teachers are very understanding, which is another pro. Teachers understand you're is in this situation, and we're all in this together. People are gonna have technological constraints. People are gonna have their Wi-Fi go down. It's just part of the little beauty of online school. Nothing's perfect and it's got its kinks, but we work around them. Another really funny story I have to share with you is actually from a friend of mine. All right, so I have permission to share his story on here, just so we're clear about that. He actually, it's a similar story to mine, in where he was turning an assignment into a teacher, right? And he wanted to submit like a funny meme, like video with his assignment, right? Just something to like cheer everybody up, because since it was when we were in quarantine for the first time and everybody was sort of on edge, and it's a rough environment, but the little things we can do to make it better are what we're gonna go out and do. And he submitted a video, but he forgot to submit his actual assignment, right? So his teacher, I'd imagine that his teacher wakes up in the morning, goes to grade people's like assignments, right, and gets to my friends, and it's just a video, no assignment there whatsoever. It's just a funny meme video there. I don't know if she found it funny. I don't know if it was funny at all. You know, Depends on his taste in videos, really. But gladly he was able to get everything sorted out and get his actual assignment turned into his teacher. And I could be wrong, but I think it was actually his CPT that this happened with. So, I'll ask him. Maybe another time we'll touch back on this story and I'll be able to give you guys an update on that. Eh. Now, this as awkward as this may seem, because later in the video I actually talk about like less social interaction, but th this online school thing has actually given me more time to spend with my friends. Like, since I'm home all the time and I'm just sitting doing nothing most of the day actually, because like we can't go outside, we can't go see anybody. I personally don't have a job right now. My parents don't even really want me to have a job due to just the environment of everything going on around us. And I completely understand that. And I'm not complaining personally, but I end up unironically spending more time with my friends than I would, because normally I would only see them at school or whenever where I would go over to somebody's house, which wasn't very often, right? Because I'm not just gonna show up uninvited. But now it's like we just talk online all the time. We're text, FaceTime. We use an application called Discord actually for a lot of our stuff, which is similar to Skype in the way that it's like video calls with people and you can just talk to them. And we sit in there all the time. It's great. And I found myself unironically having more interaction with my friends than before, which I really appreciate. Though it's not face to face, it's something at least, and it helps keep the morale up, you know? And another amazing pro about online school, and this is the last one, right? 24/7 access to course material is amazing, right? Having the access to slides and handouts all the time online, they all go into your Google Drive. It's a place where you'll be able to find them. You'll never forget they're there. It's amazing having these things here and just having the opportunity for like myself, because it is a little bit harder having an entire like curriculum that meant to be taught over a semester crammed into like a quadmester, right? So the semester is cut in half. But we do, once again, we do what we can to get by, you know, and this is just part of that, like the teachers understanding where the students are coming from. All right, now, right, let's get into cons here, right? Uh, Getting adjusted to working at home 24/7 is a grueling task, right? I said it actually on my first day of class. We were doing some like questions that our teacher asked us some questions about what we think of online school and our opinion. And I said it's really tough to get adjusted because my bed is right beside me while I'm listening to my teacher and I'm doing assignments and I'm doing tests and I'm doing quizzes right here in my room. Like this is not where I associate to do those type of things, right? I associate sitting down at like the classic school desk with like the classic plastic chair that, you know, is like bent a little bit from somebody else before you bending it, right? That's what I envision. I got my backpack next to me, I'm in uniform, right? That's what I envision when I'm thinking of doing a test or quiz, and that normal vision of mine has just completely been flipped on its head. It's completely backwards now, and that's really, really tough to get adjusted to. But, you know, I've slowly been able to wrap my head around it, and you're kind of forced to at the same time, right? Because if you don't get adjusted, then you're gonna fall behind, and then you got a bigger problem on your sleeve. And I'm in grade 12. Like, I got to do my best to keep up my marks, university next year, you know? The second con that I'm going over here is the fact that I almost have no social interaction with any of my friends at all. And I know this sounds hypocritical, as before I was talking about, oh, I get to talk to my friends all the time, but it's not the same as that social interaction you get when you're talking to someone face to face, right? Like I can talk to somebody online for days, but I feel like for myself, I'm more self-conscious when somebody looks me in the eyes and I'm having a conversation with them, right? And it's a different type of conversation when you're having like that face-to-face contact with somebody, right? And it's a heightened bond when you're having that sort of face-to-face contact with someone as well, right? When you're having that face-to-face discussion with them, that's almost more satisfying, is a way to put it. Satisfying. I like that. I like that as a way to put it. Satisfying. A conversation to have face-to-face than online, right? And the last con is actually technological requirements, right? Now, I, for one, personally have had an experience with this, right? Actually, one day in class, my Wi-Fi got cut out and it just went down. For the entire period, I missed everything that went down. Gladly, it was during the beginning of the course and I didn't miss a lot, which was great. Because if I had missed a day, like let's say in these courses where I am now, if I had missed a day and my Wi-Fi went out like now, like tomorrow, I would miss a lot if my Wi-Fi goes out tomorrow, right? And it's just you can't really do much about it, but teachers once again very understanding. They're always on your side in this whole situation. You can always talk to them. And I feel like that's, you know what, let's double back. That's another pro, right? You can talk to your teachers all the time. They're easily accessible through email, through Google Classroom, you know. You can talk to them all the time. And some teachers end class a little bit early and actually keep the meet open so you can go and talk to them afterwards, which is great. And I've taken advantage of that myself on time to time, and I found it very useful whenever I do. So, yeah, that's about all for my podcast today. That's the pros and cons of online school for you. You know, it's different, but we're all in this together. We're moving forward as one group. And I feel like in grade 12, in this grade where I know everybody and I'm seeing the familiar faces in my classes all the time, it makes it easier, right? Because I've known these people for 4 years of my life now. And it just it makes the environment more comfortable for a lot of people. And I feel like it's strengthening our bond as a like unit, as this graduating class, right?
And thank you so much, Marc, for those thoughts on online school. I know that I, for one, can really relate to a lot of those struggles, and I think we've all had our crazy online school stories, as well as our ups and downs with this wildly new way of doing things. So thank you again for sharing your experience with this, Marc. I can definitely say that as long as we're all understanding and trying our best through online school, none of us are fools. And with that fairly bad pun, we've officially come to the end of this life episode of Crewcast. And unfortunately, the end of Crewcast itself. For now, at least. It's been so great hosting some of these episodes. Thank you all so much for listening and for supporting this little drama class project we've got going. We all really appreciate it, and I know everyone had a really great time making all these incredible podcasts. So thank you again for taking a little chunk out of your day to listen to them and support us. I'm Jordan, and this has been Crewcast.